Earth's skies had turned a soft amber as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the steel-gray structures of the Interstellar Defense Fleet headquarters. Inside the nerve center, the hum of machinery and the constant stream of data created an atmosphere of controlled chaos. Captain Arya Kane stood at the center of the war room, her sharp eyes scanning the holographic map hovering in front of her. The room was filled with high-ranking officers, their faces lit by the flickering images of alien fleets encroaching on human space. "We're outgunned and outnumbered," General Hawkins said, his voice low but heavy with resignation. He adjusted his glasses and shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "We've been tracking the Zrather fleet for weeks. There's no way we can stand up to them with what we have." Arya's gaze didn't waver from the map. The alien fleet, a monstrous collection of warships and dreadnoughts, had reached the outer rim of the solar system. Their approach was methodical, unhurried, an invasion in slow motion, as if they knew no one could challenge them. But they hadn't accounted for the moon. They hadn't accounted for humanity's final card. Arya clenched her jaw, fighting the storm of frustration rising inside her. The humans had been preparing for this moment for years. The moon, once a barren satellite, was now the linchpin of Earth's survival. They had taken its inhospitable surface, stripped it for resources, and transformed it into something no one would expect. But not even her closest allies knew just how far they had pushed their secret project. Arya wasn't about to reveal that now. "General," she said, her voice sharp as a blade, "we have one advantage they haven't counted on." She nodded to a junior officer who activated a new display on the hologram. The screen zoomed in on the moon, showing its newly reinforced surface. "We've been underestimating our own weapon." Hawkins frowned. "The moon?" He scoffed, as if the very thought was absurd. "What are we supposed to do with a hollow rock in space? You're not suggesting—" "Yes," Arya interrupted, her eyes narrowing. "I'm suggesting the moon. But not as you think." She stepped forward, tapping the screen. "We've turned it into our biggest weapon, an unstoppable force. And we're ready to launch." A moment of silence settled over the room. Some officers exchanged skeptical glances, others stared at her with growing curiosity. Arya could feel the weight of their doubt, but she wasn't here to ask for approval. She was here to get results. "We've only just finished the final upgrades," she continued, pacing in front of the hologram. "The surface is lined with armor so dense, it can withstand anything short of a direct strike from a star. We've integrated ion cannons, fusion reactors, everything we need to cripple their fleet." "What about the rest of Earth's defenses?" Colonel Alvarez spoke up, his voice tinged with concern. "Our fleet is a fraction of what we need to stop them. Earth's fleet is a distraction," Arya said, her tone firm. "We're not going to win a traditional battle. We've always known that. But we're not playing by their rules." She turned to face the room. The officers were all looking at her now, their skepticism slowly replaced by an uneasy understanding. "You think we can just turn the tables with one weapon?" Hawkins asked, his disbelief still evident. "You're asking us to put everything on the line for a moon-based superweapon. It's not a gamble if we've planned every move," Arya replied, her voice steady. "I don't expect them to fold easily. But once we reveal the moon, we'll have them on the back foot. They'll hesitate. They'll doubt. And that's when we strike." The room was silent. The weight of Arya's words hung heavy, and for the first time, the officers began to process what she was saying. Hawkins finally leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples, clearly grappling with the idea. "We'll need to act quickly," he muttered. "If we wait too long, they'll overpower us." "We don't have the luxury of time," Arya agreed, her eyes flicking back to the map. The Zrather fleet was now only a few light hours away from Earth. They would arrive soon. "We launch tonight." The tension in the room was palpable. They all knew that this was their last chance. If they failed, humanity would be at the mercy of an empire far more advanced than they could ever hope to match. As the officers began to process her orders, Arya stepped to the side of the room, calling up a new set of data. She glanced at the officers one last time. "We've got one shot. Make sure everything is in place. The room filled with a flurry of activity. Orders were shouted, technicians scrambled to adjust settings, and the officers broke off into small groups to finalize preparations. Arya remained at the center of it all, her mind focused on the task ahead. She knew what was at stake. This wasn't just about defeating the Zrather. It was about proving humanity's place in the galaxy. For too long, the aliens had dismissed them as insignificant. But the humans were more than just survivors. They were innovators, adapters, fighters. Arya's thoughts drifted back to the day when the project to weaponize the moon had first been proposed. She had been a lieutenant, young and idealistic, sitting in a dark conference room filled with high-ranking officers. They had all laughed at the idea then. The moon? A weapon? The idea had seemed preposterous. But Arya had known better. She'd always believed humanity's true strength lay in their ability to adapt. And now, they would show the galaxy just how deadly that adaptability could be. As the final preparations began, Arya stood alone in front of the holographic map, staring at the approaching alien fleet. The future of Earth rested on the shoulders of this one final strike. And she was ready. Space shimmered with unnatural beauty, but Arya Kane had no time for poetry. From the command bridge of Helios 9, the flagship orbiting the moon, she watched the Zrather fleet creep into view like shadows cast by a storm no one could outrun. Her crew sat tense at their stations, silent but for the occasional beep of incoming data. Every soul aboard knew the next few hours would define the fate of humanity. Fleet status? Arya asked without turning. Earth's orbital ships are forming a defensive ring, Lieutenant Harrow replied. But they're not expecting to survive the first assault. They're not meant to, Arya said. They're bait. The moon drifted outside the observation window, vast and cold, its craters now hiding the most devastating weapon humanity had ever constructed. Beneath that familiar, dusty shell was steel, plasma channels, fusion cores, and silence. It had taken 20 years to build, all under the nose of an unsuspecting galaxy. Arya pressed a palm to the comms console. Activate Project Erebos. All sectors, prepare for live-fire combat protocol. This is not a drill. A low tremor pulsed through Helios 9 as systems aligned. Far below, massive panels on the moon's dark side slid apart, revealing arrays of cannons the size of skyscrapers. The moon had become a machine of war. First contact in 5 minutes, Harrow announced. Put them on screen, Arya ordered. The holographic wall blinked and filled with the Zrather fleet, elegant crescent-shaped vessels, gliding like predators. Dozens of warcruisers moved in formation, a tide of metal and plasma. At the center, the Imperial dreadnought loomed, a monstrous thing bristling with energy weapons. Arya's stomach clenched, but her voice remained level. Begin power transfer from lunar reactors. Charge primary arrays. Charging now, said Chief Engineer Sato. 15% and rising. Too slow. Boost output through auxiliary conduits, she ordered. If they fire first, we won't get a second chance. A buzz pierced the comm channel. A transmission, alien and arrogant. The hologram shifted. A Zrather commander appeared, tall, skin a shifting bronze, eyes like frozen nebulae. He wore ceremonial armor as if the war was already won. I am Commander Zeltor of the Zrather First Fleet, he announced, voice translated but still dripping with disdain. Your resistance is irrelevant. Power down your vessels and surrender Earth. Show humility, and your extinction will be painless. Arya didn't blink. This is Captain Arya Kane of Earth's Interstellar Defense Fleet. Turn your ships around, Commander, or I will turn your arrogance into orbital debris. Zeltor's mouth twitched, an alien smirk. Your species built cities out of stone when we bent suns to our will. You speak bravely for someone about to die. She cut the transmission. Contact lost, Harrow said, almost impressed. They'll fire in 3, 2. A shockwave of plasma tore across space. The outer rim of Earth's defense line exploded in silent flashes. 3 human ships were vaporized instantly. The rest scattered like startled birds, trying to reposition. "Return fire from moon batteries!" Arya snapped. The moon came alive. A thrum filled the bridge as the lunar cannons opened fire. Each pulse lit space with burning trails, faster than any missile, louder than any threat ever made. Two Zratha cruisers shattered on impact, their hulls blooming into molten fragments. Another was hit broadside and spun into a fatal spiral. The room erupted in cheers, but Arya raised a hand. "This is just the beginning," she said. "Focus." The Zratha regrouped with chilling efficiency. Smaller attack ships weaved through space toward the moon, trying to pinpoint weak spots in its defense. Arya knew the truth: there were still vulnerabilities. The moon hadn't been stress-tested, not under fire like this. "Sector 4 defense grid is struggling," Sato called. "Power fluctuations across the inner conduit loop. Shut down non-critical systems. Divert all juice to the rail coils," Arya ordered. "We lose that array, and we're blind on the dark side." "Done," Sato confirmed. "Stabilizing." A proximity alert screamed through the bridge. A swarm of Zratha drones descended like locusts, diving straight toward Helios 9. "Evasive maneuvers!" Harrow shouted. The ship rolled hard, pulling away from orbit just as the swarm peppered its hull. Shields flared. Alarms shrieked. Arya grabbed the console for balance. "Divert control to AI targeting. Deploy countermeasures." Above the moon, the human fleet launched drone interceptors, new prototypes designed for one thing: close-range disruption. They met the alien swarm head-on in a silent, chaotic ballet of light and fire. Arya watched grimly as pieces of both forces drifted into the void. "We're holding," Harrow said. "Barely." She exhaled slowly. "Send a message to Earth. Let them know the moon is operational. And that we're not surrendering." Another volley of moon fire tore through the void. The enemy dreadnought tilted, its port side bleeding plasma. Inside the command center, tension gave way to a focused determination. Arya moved among her crew, checking data feeds, issuing corrections, calculating the next strike. She didn't allow relief. "Not yet." "Status of enemy flagship?" she asked. "Damage to their main shield array," Sato replied. "It's regenerating, but slower than expected. They're rattled." Arya's fingers hovered over the command input. She could feel it. This wasn't going the way the Zratha had planned. They hadn't come expecting resistance. They'd come to dominate. And they were bleeding. "Prepare the fusion lance," she said. Sato's head whipped around. "Captain, that system's still in calibration. Calibrate it faster. This is our window." A murmur spread across the bridge, but no one argued. They trusted her. She had led this operation from blueprints to battlefield. Outside, the moon rotated subtly, adjusting its aim. Deep beneath its crust, the fusion lance hummed to life, a concentrated particle weapon designed for one shot, one kill. "Fire when ready," Arya said. 3, 2, 1. The moon unleashed hell. A beam of searing white carved through the black, striking the Zratha dreadnought dead center. Shields collapsed in a blink. Armor buckled. The ship didn't explode. It disintegrated, molecule by molecule, burned out of existence. Gasps echoed through the bridge. "Target destroyed," Harrow whispered. Arya allowed herself one breath of satisfaction. "Status of remaining forces?" "Fleet is retreating," Sato said. "They're falling back to high orbit. We hit them hard enough to make them think." She nodded. "Good. Let them wonder." As silence settled over the bridge, Arya looked again at the moon. The galaxy had mocked humanity. Now it would remember the day Earth fought back, with its own moon as a cannon. And this was just the beginning. The battle had begun to slow, the once frenetic chaos now tapering into a heavy, reluctant silence. Helios 9 drifted in the aftermath, the hum of its engines the only sound on the bridge. Arya stood alone before the observation window, staring out into the void. The Zratha fleet had retreated, but they were far from defeated. The damage to their flagship was substantial, but the aliens would regroup. This was far from over. "Status on their retreat?" she asked, without turning around. "Escaping beyond the asteroid belt," Lieutenant Harrow reported. "They're pulling back to reevaluate. We've crippled their offensive, but not enough to end this war." Arya nodded, the weight of their victory not yet sinking in. "They're watching us now. Waiting. They'll strike again," Harrow said. "That's what they do." A shadow crossed the bridge as General Hawkins stepped in, his face haggard and eyes wide with an emotion Arya had only seen once before, fear. He crossed the room quickly, coming to a halt beside her at the window. "They're not retreating, Captain?" "Not really," Hawkins said. "We've underestimated them." Arya didn't look at him, her eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. "What do you mean?" "The Zrather have a contingency plan." "They always do," Hawkins muttered. "If you thought this was just a simple tactical retreat, you're wrong. They've been coordinating with someone else." The hair on the back of Arya's neck stood up. "What are you saying?" "They've activated a second fleet. We've just received intel from the Ort relay." Hawkins let out a grim chuckle. "It's not just the Zrather anymore, Captain. They've called in reinforcements." Arya's pulse quickened. "Who?" "An ancient race. The Sithra." Arya felt a chill. The name was one she hadn't heard in years, not since the early days of the war, when humanity had been nothing more than a speck in the galactic landscape. The Sithra were older than the Zrather, their presence whispered about in the darkest corners of space, but never confirmed. Legendary, godlike, and merciless. "They're myth," Arya said, though she didn't believe her own words. "They're real," Hawkins snapped. "And they're coming. I've read their reports, seen their data. The Sithra are masters of manipulation. They don't need to fight. They can break an entire fleet with their minds." Arya turned sharply to face him. "Psychic warfare?" "Their ability goes beyond that," Hawkins said, his voice low. "They can control thoughts. They can turn entire armies against their own commanders with a whisper. The Zrather, they've been puppets. And now, they're bringing in the hands that pull the strings." For a moment, the room was quiet, the weight of what he just said sinking in. The thought of an enemy who could control minds was a terrifying one. Humanity's strength had always been its ability to fight back, to adapt, to overcome, but what if the battle was no longer physical? Arya's mind raced. The Zrather may have been brutal, but they were predictable. The Sithra? Unfathomable. "How long until they arrive?" she asked, her voice tight with urgency. "They're already in system," Hawkins replied, his eyes scanning the data streams. "We have." He paused, his face twisting into something that could almost be called dread. "We have less than 20 hours before they reach the inner rim." Arya's fingers tightened into fists. "Then we don't wait. We hit them first." "Are you insane?" Hawkins barked. "We don't even know what they're capable of. We've barely survived the Zrather, and now you want to charge straight into the heart of this?" Arya's eyes narrowed. "I'm not letting them dictate the terms of this war. We've been reactive long enough. Now it's time to be proactive. We're talking about a race that—" "I know what they can do," she cut him off. "But they've never dealt with us before. Humanity is resilient. We have one advantage the Sithra will never understand." "And what's that?" Hawkins asked, his voice quieter now. "We fight for each other." He was silent for a moment, considering her words. "You're sure about this?" Arya looked out at the stars, her expression hardening. "We have no choice. If we let them take the initiative, we're as good as dead." The decision was made. The moon had already done its job, but now it was time for Earth's last stand. Humanity would take the fight to them. Arya walked to the central console and activated the fleet-wide comms. "All units, listen up," she said, her voice firm and resolute. "This is Captain Arya Kane. The Zrather are no longer our only problem. We've been blindsided by the Sithra, a race of psychic masters. They're already in system, and they'll be on us in less than 20 hours. We're not waiting for them to come to us. We're going after them. Prepare for immediate offensive action. The room erupted into activity, officers barking orders, the crew moving with a newfound sense of purpose. They were still battered from the initial engagement, but they understood, if the Sithra were as dangerous as Hawkins suggested, this could be their last chance. Arya, we need to prepare for the mental assault, Harrow said, his voice strained. The Sithra could take control of the entire fleet. We won't last long if we don't secure some kind of defense. Arya nodded. She had anticipated this. Prepare anti-psi protocols. Deploy neural dampeners across all ships. We've got them ready, Harrow said, tapping on his console. But it's a stopgap at best. If the Sithra hit us hard enough, it might not matter. She grimaced. I know. But it's all we have right now. Just then, the room's doors slid open, and a technician rushed in, carrying a data pad. Captain, we've got a live feed from the Ort relay, he said breathlessly. It's from the Zrather. They're sending a message. It's addressed to Earth directly. Arya's brow furrowed. She crossed the room, snatching the device from his hands. The message was short, the language alien but clearly translated. You have won a battle, but the war is not yours. You have awakened the Sithra, and now you will learn fear. Prepare to kneel. Arya's lip curled into a bitter smile. They think they've won, she said, voice dripping with disdain. We'll show them what it means to underestimate humanity. The stars felt closer. Or maybe it was just a weight pressing on Arya's mind as Helios 9 glided into deep range. No battle drums. No war cries. Just the silent countdown before something ancient collided with humanity's resolve. She stood at the tactical core, staring at the map. The Sithra fleet didn't appear, because it didn't need to. There were no engine signatures, no heat trails. Just space, empty and still, and the quiet terror of not knowing where they were hiding. Captain, Harrow said from her left, the Ort station is offline. No debris, no radiation spike. It's just gone. Gone how? She asked, not blinking. As if it was never built, he replied. Erased. Behind Arya, the room held its breath. Not destroyed? She pressed. No. Disintegrated at the molecular level, clean. The crew too. Then they're already in our minds, she muttered. General Hawkins entered, lips tight, posture too rigid. Fleets in position. Orbital batteries synced. Earth Command approved full engagement if we make visual. They won't see anything, Arya said. Not unless the Sithra want them to. And just like that, the lights flickered. The ship didn't shake. It didn't sound alarms. But something shifted, a feeling, subtle and invasive, like gravity leaning in a direction it shouldn't. The crew exchanged nervous glances. A low hum vibrated through the walls, not mechanical, but biological, alive. Arya closed her eyes. Everyone activate neural dampeners. Harrow slammed his hand against a panel. The ship pulsed faintly as the dampening field wrapped around their brains like static armor. Immediately, the pressure lessened. Breathing came easier. Thoughts grew clearer. But not untouched. A voice slipped through her mind, silk-wrapped in ice. You are bold, for a child of fire and dust. She clenched her jaw. Get out of my head. There is no you. There is no self. You are moments in motion, watching yourself die before it happens. Shield integrity holding. Harrow barked. Neural dampeners at 95%. Arya turned. Drop stealth countermeasures. Force visual detection. They think we're still crawling in the dark. Helios 9 flared. Panels across the hull snapped open, radiating energy into the void. For the first time, humanity's fleet gleamed, visible, defiant. And then space fractured. The Sithra did not arrive in ships. They unfolded. Like folds in time ironed flat, their vessels emerged, angular monstrosities of black metal, shifting with impossible geometry. No engines. No heat. Just presence. 12 ships, no 17, Hawkins whispered. They're not moving. They're watching. They've been watching, Arya said. They're deciding whether we're worth wiping out. The largest Sithra structure hovered forward. It wasn't a ship, it was a spire, spinning slowly, casting no shadow. At its peak, a light pulsed. You are not prey, the voice said again in her mind. You are infection. You must be burned. Arya stepped forward, her voice sharp and real. Transmit. The communications officer blinked. To who? To them. You want to talk to. Do it. He obeyed. Arya faced the spire's holographic projection. This is Captain Arya Kane of Earth. You've probed our minds, killed our people, erased our history. You want obedience. What you'll get is resistance. We are not prey. We are the fire. No response. Just silence. Then, you are fractal illusions, pretending to matter. Your resistance is amusing. Show us your flame, child. Arya turned to Sato at engineering. Fire the fusion lance. Target that spire. His eyes widened. At this range? If we miss, we won't. The moon cannon aligned. A heartbeat later, white fire split the darkness. The lance struck the Sithra spire dead on. For a second, nothing happened. Then the spire cracked. Not shattered, cracked. Like glass under strain. A shriek, not of sound but of thought, blasted through every mind on the ship. Arya staggered. Mind wave spike. Harrow cried. Shields at 80. The spire imploded, folding into itself. But it left behind something worse, movement. The rest of the fleet began to shift. Lines bent where they shouldn't. Light curved. A second shriek began, longer, deeper, more invasive. Arya saw flashes, her mother's face, burning cities, dead friends, memories ripped from her soul and weaponized. Brace! She yelled. Phase weapons coming. The Sithra fired. Reality twisted. Space around Helios 9 warped, peeled, shattered. But the ship held barely. Sparks burst from the ceiling. Sato screamed as a panel exploded, burning his arm. Hawkins grabbed him, dragging him back. We've got to push. Hawkins roared. Arya agreed. Deploy drone swarm. All units, converge on the nearest Sithra node. Full assault. Humanity's fleet surged forward. The moon launched a second strike, its cannon white-hot. Railguns from Earth's defense grid followed, a storm of kinetic death. And for the first time, the Sithra reeled. Their ships were powerful. But they had underestimated something crucial. Humans weren't orderly. They weren't predictable. They were angry. The closest Sithra ship broke formation, lashing out with a storm of black energy. It collided with 3 interceptors, melting them mid-flight. But Earth's ships kept coming, hammering it until it fractured like obsidian under pressure. Hit confirmed. Harrow yelled. Another one down. The Sithra began to retreat, slowly, then faster. They hadn't planned for this. They had assumed fear would do the work for them. Arya pressed forward. No mercy. We finish this. The final strike came from the moon. A triple burst. The last Sithra spire shattered into a cascade of failing light. And just like that, the voice was gone. The silence was real this time. On the bridge, no one moved. Then, one by one, they breathed again. Enemy fleet destroyed. Harrow said. They're gone. Arya sank into her chair. Not in exhaustion. In awe. Humanity had stood on the edge of extinction. And instead of kneeling, they'd roared. She opened the comms. Earth needed to hear this. This is Captain Kane. The Sithra threat has been neutralized. We held the line. We are still here. She paused. And the galaxy just learned what it means to wake a sleeping giant.